So, welcome back, everyone. Episode 4.
Number 4.
We made it.
We would have done this a little sooner, but someone had to go to Jamaica for a
I
week.
know. Sorry. It was good.
I know. Well, my pale.
I was just going to say, yeah, you look
skin
kind
here.
of whitey over there.
Yeah, it looks like you should be the one with the golf shirt, and
I know.
I should be wearing the long sleeves here.
I should. But anyway, it was a great trip. I'm glad to be back.
What was your favorite part?
The sunshine and the pool and the ocean.
But you didn't do the jump from Rick's Cafe.
I didn't do the jump.
Ah,
It wasn't high enough. I need it higher than, it was like 30 feet. It's nothing.
risk taker here.
Yeah. If it's not 60 feet, I don't jump. All right, so on this episode, we're going to talk about probably the most important aspect of this industry, which is preparedness, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think we've been in a soft market for so long that a lot of those decisions have been made
Solely on price.
solely on price.
Yeah.
And things are starting to change. And we're going to talk about how, we can prepare for the future, prepare for the change in transportation and what comes next.
Yeah. So I know a couple of things we want to hit on this episode: the exploding organized crime,
Yeah,
cargo theft.
I think that's an important one that we'll touch on. We're going to touch on a couple of mergers that are happening in the transportation world, infrastructure consolidation, as we call it.
Yeah. Cross-border complexities.
Yeah, and the financial pressures that are building on the carrier networks.
So cargo theft and fraud explosion, right? It's way more sophisticated now than it was in the past.
Yeah, these, let's call them bad actors, are just becoming more and more legitimate each day. It's actually quite astonishing how they're able to mimic legitimate carriers in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a big thing, right? Carrier fraud.
Yep.
Right? Carrier identity fraud, I should say. I think they're repurposing, they're getting the carrier MC numbers,
Yeah.
right? They're changing all the information. They're making it go to a different phone number, different email address.
Yeah, slight changes in the email address. For example, at transport.com is transport with an S at the end. It just
The old classic plural.
Exactly.
Transports.
right. And what we're seeing a lot is freight interception, right? So these bad actors will mimic these legitimate carriers. They'll double broker, in essence, to another carrier and have them delivered to a different location. And at that location, obviously, they're intercepting the freight, stealing your goods, and here we go, big claims on the board.
Which is what I'm surprised, because most carriers, if they're going to go in somewhere, they know the origin, they know the destination, and the minute a driver picks up, and this is how you know it's a classic scam, the minute he picks up, he's being told that it's being diverted, right, to another warehouse.
Yeah.
Right? And no one's questioning that, which just surprises me.
And the other thing that surprises me is seafood, meat. Like those are huge
foodstuffs.
targets
Yeah, they are.
of these illegitimate brokers. Consumer goods always, right? And we're seeing California, New Jersey, and I forgot
Illinois.
Illinois, that was the last state.
Anywhere, any big freight hubs like that. Obviously, California, all the containers and all that container freight coming into the ports, that's just, it's ripe for theft.
Yeah. So I guess what we need to bring up is you really need to be prepared. You need to have a very good visibility network. You need to put the right levers in place. You need to make sure that your transportation partners are doing what they need to do to secure your freight. Make sure that visibility is there, and make sure that they do everything in their power to stop these bad actors.
Yeah. Well, I think we're even talking to all our shippers as well, right? We're now saying you need to demand, photo ID. See, write down the driver's license, make sure it matches.
MC numbers,
Yeah.
DOT. You want everything to match on the truck, right?
Yeah.
So these are just some steps we can take to make sure we secure everyone's freight. So our next topic is infrastructure consolidation.
Yes.
Obviously,
the big
you've
rail
heard-
merger.
Yeah, you've heard about the big rail merger. So Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern are going to create the first coast-to-coast rail line, which should take a lot of pressures off depots such as Chicago that are the hubs where freight kind of changes rail lines.
I think typically you saw Chicago as that freight hub, so all the trains would come in from the west. That was sort of their, consolidation point, I guess you'd say.
Yep.
And a lot of trucks then grab that freight from that point. And now I guess we're basically eliminating, that distribution center.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. And this is kind of a different conversation. It's not really rail versus road. the topic. It's more about, the options available to customers,
Right.
right? Rail, in my experience, is very rigid. You have to follow their rules. When rail capacity tightens and the capacity shrinks, they just tell you they don't have availability. You need to find other alternate arrangements.
Yeah. And I think that's what happens, right? People get sort of lulled by that low price, and I guess it's an ease of use until it's not, right? And then people are now scrambling to find recovery options when capacity does get tight. And so I'm not really sure how this is going to play out with the extra,
Yeah, is it a good thing or a bad thing?
I'm not quite sure. I think time's going to tell.
Again, as far as a customer, I think you always have to diversify your portfolio.
Yeah.
I think you need to look at those options that are very flexible, that can give you real-time results. And
Well, for some customers, it may work. It may work really well if there's no time constraints on the freight, and they are just looking for the cheapest option.
yeah,
But there's going to come a day where capacity is not going to be there.
but again, just be flexible.
Yeah.
Be ready.
Yep. Agreed. So Mexico and nearshoring, we got to talk about it, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of money being pumped into Mexico right now.
Absolutely. Mexico just took over as the biggest exporter to the USA, beating out Canada.
Yeah. Well, obviously, cheaper labor, right? They've got a great transportation network that's growing and building for that cross-border traffic. I know the tariffs, have really helped spur that in Mexico.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other thing is the transportation infrastructure is really starting to take shape.
Yeah.
You're seeing a lot more options when it comes to Mexican transportation into Canada and the US. So it only makes sense that they would start to take the throne as far as trade goes.
Yeah. Except, some drawbacks that we're seeing, customs compliance, document requirements for Mexico, border delays, security concerns, right?
Well, you need to know Mexican freight. Like,
Yeah. Well, you need a good Mexican partner.
you do. Carta porta, pedimentos, all this different paperwork that you really need to be well versed on. You can't just pick up and say, I'm going to transport stuff to Mexico. You need to have the right partners in place, and you need to make sure that you're not looking for the cheapest cost when it comes to Mexico. You need to make sure someone is reliable, they know their stuff, they have partners at the borders, they have partners that are transporting goods back and forth through Mexico, the US, and Canada. It's a very important network to make sure that you have buttoned down.
Yeah, I would agree.
So our next topic is transportation costs and market pressure building again. So obviously for the last 3 years, a lot of our transportation networks were based on a soft market, right? What we see is that created a lot of inefficiencies when the market did tighten, right? So, carriers, fuel costs, insurance, labor, equipment, everything's going up. We've talked about this in many other episodes before where, these they start to put the pressure on these carriers where they can't sustain business anymore, right?
Right. Well, I think the first thing that happens is all those sort of weak transportation strategies that these companies were using get exposed very quickly.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
They just can't continue operating in the method that they were doing for the last couple of years. And so you're seeing the pressures on the fuel. You're seeing, any kind of stability or financial stability, starts happening with these guys.
Yeah.
They were running such a fine line that they just can't continue. And they're exiting the market because of that.
And we've talked about that. We've talked about the number. We're not going to get into the specifics, but we've talked about the number of carriers exiting the market, and it hasn't stopped, right?
No.
It hasn't stopped. It continues. So what comes next?
You need a good partner that's going to be there today and tomorrow. They're going to give you full transparency.
Longevity.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? 34 years. 34.
Full
35.
transparency across the network, right? To be a true partner for our customers, we have to be an open book, right? And we're only as good as our customers are. So if they're succeeding, we're succeeding. And that's kind of how we go into all these partnerships.
Yeah, and we're not the low-cost provider.
I don't think you want us to be.
No, and we put an emphasis on our technology.
Right.
We put an emphasis on the people, and we put an emphasis on the tenor as well, because at the end of the day, you don't want to have to re-explain yourself every single time. You want someone that knows your freight, knows how to handle it, cares for you as a customer and an individual.
Yep.
And it's something we try to push here as much as we can.
So I guess our final closing message should really be that the transportation industry is becoming way more complex than it ever has been. Is being way more operationally demanding on companies, and we're more interconnected now than ever before with our customers and our partners.
Yeah, like all of these factors, all of these different elements that we've talked about today, just emphasizes the need to find a good partner who is going to invest in their own company, invest in their technology, invest in their people.
And that are able to adapt and be agile.
For sure. You don't want to chase the low cost anymore.
No.
Right? As this market continues to tighten, the low cost is just going out the window.
Well, they can't compete. They're not complex. They don't have the infrastructure needed in this kind of environment now, right? I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing an erosion of these smaller players, and it's, only the strong will survive.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Building a resilient supply chain.
I like that. So on that note, I guess we're going to say goodbye.
Yeah.
We've finished episode 4. We can't wait for you to come back and join us on episode 5.
So give us a like, a follow, a share.
And be sure to visit us at www.isgtransport.com.